In the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night. Hello and welcome back, my homicidal friends. I am Anthropomantic Fiend, and I will be continuing my review of the 30 Nightmare Movies box set with Summer of Fear, which came out in 1996, and definitely looks it, but that's definitely not a bad thing. Yeah, I was expecting it to be some kind of like summer camp slasher thing from the title, but it's not at all. It's much more subtle than pretty much anything that's in the box set. Subtle and good. I'll get to that in a little bit, but yeah, it came out in 1996, and it follows a family who's going to this cottage for a summer vacation, and on the way their car gets attacked by these two people. The family's on the brink of death, and this guy named Simon comes and rescues them, threatens them with a shotgun that he doesn't have, bluffs his way out of it, and takes them back to the cottage, or to the hospital first, then they go to the cottage. But I'm gonna have to get into spoilers right now, otherwise I can't really say anything about the movie, but you could probably piece it together, because there's always something kind of off about Simon. Right from the get-go, he's just so casual and just too nice, and you're just like, there's something shifty about this guy. So that, paired with the fact that this is based on a book called Simon Says, should tell you enough to know that this isn't going to end well. So I'm going to be doing this the way I did my last review, starting with the stuff that I did like, moving on to the stuff I didn't like as much. So right off the bat, they're going on their trip, and they're talking casually, and we get a jump scare out of nowhere. The two guys ambush them. And generally, I hate jump scares, but this one got me and took the movie from 0 to 11 instantly, and I thought it was done really well, so I can't believe I'm praising a jump scare, but I am. It was effective. The overall aesthetic of this movie really reminds me of what I would imagine when I read something by Stephen King or Anne Rice. When I read The Shining or The Witching Hour, I picture this sort of look that this movie has, and on top of that, the way that the story is structured and the way that they have the characters interact. For example, they'll have a character find a certain object and look at it, and it'll flash back, and we go through little bits with a bunch of the different characters, just sort of figuring out what all of their personal demons are. I criticized I Am Omega for sort of taking all of the demons that Richard had and sort of giving them to another character. All of the characters in this have demons, and they play with that excellently throughout the whole movie. And there's just little quirks, like a song that Simon sings, and just all these little plot nuances that remind me a lot of some sort of the winding intricacies of a Stephen King book or an Anne Rice book. It's not overly poetic, but it's poetic. in some ways. Moving on to the characterization specifically of Simon. Simon is super nice. Too nice, like I already said. Gradually throughout the movie, you sort of see the way that he manipulates this family into doing what he wants. He seduces the main character father's wife and daughter, which is not okay, and he sort of tells both kids, you need to stand up to your dad, and while telling the dad, you know what, I'm going to take care of these kids, make sure they're doing what you want them to. And there's just all these little subtle things that you see him do to manipulate the whole family. You see the mom reading a philosophy book by Voltaire at a dinner scene when Simon's there at the beginning, and then later you see him sneak into the basement, read a few excerpts from the Voltaire book, and then later quote them back to the mother character, just sort of to win over her trust. And there's all these little creepy things that he does that are really cool. And throughout the movie, you're just seeing all these little things he's done. He's hired the two people who attacked them so that he can get a hold of the family. And I could see the Simon thing coming, but yeah, it's a really subtle movie. Much more subtle than I thought it was going to be. Simon plays with the family throughout the thing. And going on to the other characters, the dad had an affair in the cabin years ago before they go back, and he's got all these issues that you see flashbacks to, and you don't really know why until later. I'll get to that. The mom is good. The whole family sort of starts to blame the dad for being paranoid and ruining their family and turning everyone against each other before they sort of start to realize that it's actually Simon that's doing all of it. The younger kid, Zach, he's a gamer. You see him playing with a Game Boy on the way to the cabin, and at first you're like, oh, this is going to be that stereotype of the gamer kid who just kind of ignores the world and stays in his Game Boy. And no. Later you see him playing a game of chess with Simon, and he's just like, I want to play chess more often, but my dad doesn't know how to play. So he's a bit more sophisticated than your general gamer stereotype, which I like. And he just kind of wants to do his own thing. He wants to explore outside, look for crabs. And his dad doesn't want him to do that. And Simon sort of manipulates that to turn Zach against his dad. The daughter character, whose name I forget, I only remember Zach, Simon, and another character who I'm about to get to. But the daughter character gets a crush on Simon pretty quick, and he starts taking her out on a boat to fish with him. And I thought it was really cool that they made him a fisher, and he sort of talks about, catching fish is my only real, that's my thing, that's my pleasure in life. And they sort of use the fishing thing and him reeling things in on a hook as a metaphor for what he's doing to the family, and I thought that was phenomenal. And then there's Winnie, who's this old family friend who comes in to check on the family, and at first she's kind of loudmouth, obnoxious, snarky, and I didn't know how I was going to feel about her, but over time I warmed to her, especially since she's the first person who sort of instantly sees through what Simon is doing. He's like, no, don't trust this guy, there's something wrong with him. I'm going to leave that at that and go on to the big spoilery thing. So I'll just say right now, if you like gory, over-the-top slasher stuff, You're not going to get any of that here. There's frankly not really a body count to this movie at all. It's this subtle, creepy, uncomfortable psychological thriller. Yeah, it makes you think about things, and the plot is super nuanced. I want to read the book that it's based on, Simon Says. I'm going to have to get a hold of that, because I can tell that that writer put a lot of thought into their book, and yeah, I'm just going to have to get a hold of that. At the end of this movie, we've sort of started to hear about the affair that this dad had with this other woman in the cabin years and years ago, and it sort of comes out that he got her pregnant and left her there. And then throughout the movie, Simon is talking about, I want to stay with you guys because I never really had a family, because my mom died. I found her dead, and then I had to live with my uncle, who was not good. And so I've just sort of drifted all my life. And you're like, oh, that's a cover story as soon as you hear it. But it's not. It's the truth. And his mom is the other woman who the dad got pregnant, and then he leaves the woman, or so we think. And we find out that Simon found her in the bathtub with her wrist slit, and she had committed suicide. And then Simon had to go live with his uncle, who molested him, so he's a much more tragic figure than we think. He's still super creepy, but he has a motive, and he's just tracked down his dad his entire life to get his revenge for leaving his mother. And at the very end, he's got the whole family cornered, and he's about to try to kill the son, Zach, just to give his dad the pain he felt at losing a family member, essentially. And then Dad comes out and starts describing all these things about his childhood room, and revealing that he never actually left him after all. And as a matter of fact, his wife left with Simon. And it's not the ending I was expecting at all, because eventually Simon doesn't die, neither do any of the family members. The police arrive, and they all just sort of go in, and they're like, we're gonna have a talk. And that's where the movie ends. It's super subtly creepy. There's no gore, there's no body count. It's just really good tension and uncomfortableness over the course of the whole movie. And I don't really have that much bad to say about this movie. I only wish that some of the characters had a few more quirks to them, because it's kind of just this fairly generic portrait of an American family with some demons lurking underneath. I wish there were a few more quirks to their personality, but that's super minor. This is a phenomenal film. You should watch it. Yeah, Summer of Fear. Check it out. That's all I really have to say, except this might be my last film review for a long time, because I'm going to a summer camp in a few days. Hopefully I don't die. Probably won't. But I'll see you next time I make a review. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna have to edit this video.